good, looking pretty.
Welcome to another Off the Lip Radio show, show number like 490, I think. TC's not here, TC's doing something else. But I'm here today with my good friend, again, interviewing him for this next crazy adventure that he's on. Every time I interview him, he's doing something that's nuts. But I'm always grateful that he shows up at my house or wherever we may be, and it's always good to see him. This guy right here is named Chris Bertish. He won Mavericks in 2010, paddleboarded across the Atlantic in 2017, which, by the way, was the last time I thought I'd ever see him. But no, he made it. And now we're going to talk about his next adventure, which is Mr. Chris Bertish.
Wingfoil across the Pacific.
Make sure they have the thing.
Wingfoiling across the Pacific from Half Moon Bay to Hawaii.
When did that idea come about? Make sure you have that thing nice and close.
I've been thinking about it for a while and just sort of seeing what different options and different adventures I could undertake. And obviously with COVID, everything's been tough and people have been dealing with a lot of challenges around the world. And I thought I could use the time constructively to be an example and positive inspiration and give back to lots of other people in the world.
Can we go back to just the three things that you've done that have been so highlighted? Mavericks in 2010. Because obviously each time you take a step into something else, right?
Correct.
So you took that victory in 2010, which, by the way, was the biggest waves ever recorded in Mavericks for a contest, correct?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people also like forget that like in 2000 I won the first like XXL award with Surfline for the biggest wave paddle into Todos.
Come forward here, because I want to make sure this microphone
on that really big swell in 2000. So I think and that's when I did the trifecta on one swell, which was the first time that had actually ever been done, which was surfing Waimea, then Mavericks, then Todos Santos, all on the same swell over 36 hours. And that was 3 weeks after being sort of the first person to paddle into George with Matt Kaneshita in Hawaii. So it was I think a lot of people just think that I just arrived on the scene in 2010 and like just won the event, but I've been working towards that for literally just getting into the event for a decade. So I think I got an alternate invite to the Mavericks event in 2020 in 2001 from winning the XXL award, and then it took me 9 years to get a main slot into the event from that day.
Right. And you should go back and listen to an old Off the Lip Radio show, and that's another show in itself about what that whole 48 hours of Chris leaving South Africa and making it to Mavericks. That's a show in itself. And if you go back, if you look on the Off the Lip Radio show on YouTube, you can go back and see that interview. It was truly amazing. 2007. I'm skipping forward. 2017. You decided that obviously before that, but you took off from where?
From Morocco,
right,
in northwest Africa, completely alone, unsupported, all the way across the Atlantic to Antigua, which was just over 4,600 miles, 7,500 Ks, 93 days alone.
That, by the way, is the other interview on the Off the Lip Radio show. But what I want to ask about, what came about from doing that? What were the rewards for your community, and for what was? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What rewards came about you making that crossing? I know you raised a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, again, I think like going, it's like stepping back again. Like people are like, oh wow, who's this guy that's done this thing? He just arrived doing this. I think a lot of people aren't aware that I spent from 2011 from winning the contest, I got into stand-up paddleboarding a lot, and then I ended up doing 2 world tours at the same time, the SUP World Tour and the Big Wave World Tour in the same year.
Right.
And then I started doing the open ocean records and long distance records, and then realized that through those records that I was doing, I could raise a lot of awareness and a lot of money to be able to give back and help other people.
Right.
And I think what I learned from that was that I was never able to do that in surfing. And in big wave surfing, it's sort of like, I won't say it's selfish, but it is quite a selfish pursuit of just riding the biggest waves.
Right.
And as much as it's my passion and I really love it, it's always like my favorite thing to do. I just found other tools to be able to give myself the ability to be able to raise money and awareness, to be able to give back to charities and stuff. And once I did like the 12-hour, 24-hour record, then like a 350, 200-mile journey up the rugged West Coast, and I raised a lot of money for charity. I was like, wow, well, if I built the right craft, where I didn't have to rely on collecting, taking enough water and taking enough food, and I could get a little pod that could get me out of the weather and the elements, then I wouldn't need to worry about touching land. I'd be completely self-sufficient.
Right.
And then I could go as far as I wanted to, and then I could, maybe paddle across an ocean. And then I could really change a lot of people's lives and use that voice to help a lot of people. And that's how that came about. And yes, to answer your question, we raised enough money to be able to, I think we planted a forest. We raised enough money to feed just over 100,000 kids in Africa who don't have enough money to go to school or to feed themselves, and raised enough money just under, I think, 1,000 operations for Operation Smile.
Right.
And a whole lot of stuff for educational outreach through the Two Oceans Aquarium, which we sponsored as well. We got
cool.
150,000 kids.
Congratulations on that.
Thanks. I mean, I think a lot of people just don't realize the levels of give back that are involved in everything that I do.
And I think that's the most important part of it.
Yeah, well, I mean,
in some regards,
there's so there's so many adventurers that have amazing sponsors and do these incredible things, but it's just about them.
Yeah.
It's just about their record. But I believe, as being any sort of athlete or any sort of human that has a following and an audience, it's your responsibility to be able to use that as a tool to be able to make a positive impact and give back in some way. And, I believe that if all the stuff that I did, I just did it for the records, it would be simple.
Yeah.
It's the other stuff, it's all the layers that I do. That's the hard part, is trying to incorporate that and making sure you get the amplification, making sure you make the impact, making sure you give enough back. And that's all, often it's out of your control, and I often just get disappointed because you think a lot more people will help and a lot more people will give back, but often I think you find you're disappointed with the human race.
It's tough, it's very difficult, especially in today's world, right?
For sure.
It's difficult. Now, obviously, in saying that, you don't have a team of people. You're right. It's you, right?
Yeah, it's me. I have an assistant that helps me with some stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm very fortunate that I have a team that I've worked with in the past, and I pull in people when I get funding for this, corporate sponsorship or sponsorship. Like for this project, we're raising money on the crowdfunding campaign, but we're also looking for additional sponsors. So it's one of those ones that the more money you get in to be able to make the project happen, the more people you can bring in into your team, which all it does is just makes the reach and the magnitude of what you can achieve from a give back perspective and from a influencing people perspective dramatically enhanced.
Right. In watching what you do as my friend on Facebook, I check it out and I see you. There was the foiling started for you. How many years ago?
3 years ago.
3 years ago, you started foiling. Chris is going to foil. It's not easy to do. I've seen people out here trying to do it. It's not an easy sport. So Chris is on a foil, and then now you talk about now you decide that you want to cross the.
We should pick it up. Pick it up.
Doing good. I'm just checking on all the gear.
Yeah, I want you to
speak up more.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to run short
so now,
batteries.
So now we go. Now we're crossing the. Now we're on to today's feet.
Yes.
Which is going to be in June and July of this year.
Yes.
And now we get.
Go.
Are we doing that?
Issues?
June and July. Chris and I we have the worst time with technology. Every time we get together, it's a disaster.
Oh my God!
We're a couple of idiots.
Frustrating. Oh, because we're facing the wrong way. It's just getting worse.
There you go.
We're almost there.
There we go.
Good to join me.
I could use a haircut.
There we go. Yeah, we all both.
So before now,
Here we go.
When did you decide you wanted to foil across the Pacific? Wing foil.
Probably about a year and a half ago. So I've been working on a couple different projects. There's actually a project called the Ocean 17 project, which was actually meant to be happening next year. But because of COVID last year, it's such an enormous project. It goes around the world across it's enormous from a scale perspective, and to be able to get funding to do that kind of thing just wasn't really a reality anymore. And I think everybody through COVID, we've all had to take a soft reset and sort of digest what's happening in our environment and our climate, and then pivot and shift and change accordingly. And like a lot of people out there that have either lost their jobs or their businesses have gone bankrupt or whatever else, I do a lot of speaking for a living and all that kind of stuff, which is also all the events have got cancelled. So
but by the way, if you're looking for a public speaker, let me tell you something. There's no better than this chap right here. So
yeah, so I speak, and I speak all over the world, and I've got into sort of the virtual side, and I've spoken for Google and NASA and Cisco and all those kind of big companies, but it's not anything remotely like it was. So there's really not really enough virtual talks to go around, and they pay a fraction. So I just thought of like, what could I do to be able to also utilize the time wisely and also be a positive role model for change for dealing with difficult and challenging times. So I ended up doing a whole thing on social media about helping people get through difficult and challenging times. And then we worked on putting this whole project together, which would not only do something new on a new sport which has never been done before on a whole nother level, but use that as a tool to be able to highlight some climate change issues on protecting 30% of our oceans by 2030 and going carbon net neutral by 2050, and then the ocean pollutions issue, and then giving back to multiple charities like I always do with Operation Smile, Conservation International, and planting forests in the World Climate Change Park.
Can you give your website where people can, all the things that you're doing, people can go to and check it out?
Yeah, sure. They can go and check it out on chrisbertish.com, which is spelled Chris BERTISH.com, or the Chris Bertish Foundation.org.
Right.
And they'll also be tracking my journey through that, and we'll be raising money, which all goes back to charity.
Right.
Once the actual project starts. So that's how it works.
So I was reading on the email you sent to me that you're going to be you're going to have virtual classroom on the vessel that you're foiling. Correct? Is that correct?
So yeah, I mean, again, like we were talking about, there's so many different layers to this.
Yeah.
So that's one of the layers that we're trying to implement. So I think a lot of people aren't aware that as soon as you go like 30 miles offshore, there are no cell phone towers that can reach you. So you all go onto SATCOM systems. And the SATCOM systems aren't like, I can't take my own cell phone tower, which only has a range of like 20 or 30 miles. I'm going to be going out like thousands of miles. So I'm using a tiny little pod, which is like a $30,000 kit, which is actually the unit that I'm getting installed hasn't even been launched in the world yet. It actually gets launched in 2 weeks' time, which people don't even know of, which I'm going to be implementing and testing for a big company, one of the best SATCOM companies in the world, which is big enough to be able to hopefully do, I think we've worked out that either Microsoft Teams or Skype are the platforms that use the lowest amount of data to be able to hopefully allow me to either do an audio stream or possibly even a one-to-one SATCOM stream. So we'll be testing that to see if it's possible. But again, like, these are things that have never been done before, but they cost huge amounts of money. Like, people like don't understand that just that system costs like 25 grand. Then the data for it will be another 10 grand. Then to be able to do uplinks that'll allow me to be able to tap into 10 to 20,000 kids on that one platform could be another $10,000. So it's like
expensive.
Yeah, and like I don't get anything back from that. That's because just like I believe in being able to use what I do as a tool for impacting a lot of people and highlighting amazing issues and making incredible experiences to be able to uplift and enhance and empower the youth, which is cool.
For the people who aren't familiar with foiling or paddleboarding, can you tell, or ocean itself, people may be watching, tell us how this works. Tell us about your craft and your foil.
Okay, so
and what you're using to propel the craft and the foil.
Yeah, so a lot of people aren't really aware of what winging is or wing foiling. So winging is like, it's a relatively new sport that's come out in the last year or two. A lot of people doing it in Hawaii, but all over the world really. It's one of those like phenom sports, which is like a combination between kiting and windsurfing, but with no strings attached. So it's like, picture a kite that people kite with it, which is up in the sky. You remove all the strings and then put a strut down the middle, which means you're holding it like a windsurfer like a boom, but the boom is actually air filled and you're holding it, and then you're on a board which is really small, and that has a hydrofoil attached to the bottom, so you come out of the water and you ride above the water. So a lot of people are like, oh, you're going to be foiling across the Pacific, that's amazing, but you're not actually. I won't be fully foiling. I'll be called what's called limited foiling, which is like what you do is you reduce your weighted surface. So anybody that knows foiling and comes from a foiling background across where foiling started from, which was in sailing, they'll know that what you're trying to do, which to be able to go faster, is reducing your weighted surface. So when you put a foil underneath or foils out of the side, what happens? It creates lift. The lift also creates stability. It reduces the weighted surface of the craft in the water, which is friction, which equals drag.
Right.
So you're limiting the amount you're reducing your drag, which increases speed and increases stability. As soon as you try and create a craft that comes completely out of the water, then it becomes incredibly unstable. So anybody that follows sailing will know that there are almost no crafts on the entire planet that fully foil that go across any oceans, because it's too unstable and too volatile over an extended period of time where you have rough continuous seas. So the objective is, like on the Vendée Globe, like in any of the main sailing races.
The America's Cup boats right now have that foiling system, right?
Okay, so that's correct, but again, great example.
Right.
The America's Cup is not open ocean. Those crafts that you're seeing could never go open ocean.
Right.
They can only go in a very controlled environment where the water is flat.
Like the Bay Area,
Correct,
right.
Yes, and under 20 knots.
Right.
They would fall over and they would be destroyed in any open ocean environment where the wind was more than 15 knots and there was any sort of swell.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of people don't understand that. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon.
Right.
And you don't take a good example, like people to understand, like if you're gonna do the America's Cup, then you build that craft for it, for flat water, for a controlled environment. If you're going to go open ocean, you build something completely different.
Right.
And it's the same as like people go, oh, well, it's not really foiling. You're not really foiling the way normally. Yes, I'm not foiling like you would if you're going to go in and out here and on flat water in the bay or on a lake or whatever else. But you don't take a 5'8" fish to go and surf Mavericks.
No.
You don't take a Cessna to go to the transatlantic. You don't take a Boeing 747 when you're going to the moon.
Right.
You build what is required to be able to do and create the environment for success that you need.
So the design, are you using the craft that you paddleboard across the Atlantic with?
So we basically use this. We've basically taken the shell, because I wouldn't actually, if I had to design a craft for doing what I'm planning on doing, it would be pretty much exactly the same thing, except for I'd change a whole lot of things on it. I'd use the basic shell and then I'd change everything. I'd change the deck, I'd raise the deck, I'd change the back, I'd change the side walls, I'd add on rails to be able to implement foils on it, change the rudder system, change the centerboard system, change the pod system, change the hydraulics, change the autopilot system, which is exactly what we've done. We basically stripped it down to a shell, then we took off the entire deck, taken off the side walls, taken off the back, adding on a wind vane, adding on a machine learning autopilot system that can start learning. It learned while I'm going how the craft reacts, and then it reacts to that according to the course that I need to adhere to. And then obviously the whole project is completely powered by nature, so it's all driven by wind power with a wing that I'm holding. Hydropower is in there's a hydro generator on the back which charges with a propeller like you would have on an engine, but which is pointing the opposite way. So when you're going more than 3 knots, it spins and then generates energy to be able to charge my batteries. And then there's a wind vane, so if I'm using too much energy on the autopilot system, then I'll change over to the wind vane, which is completely powered by nature. And then we also have all the solar, which is charging everything from the battery banks, and that runs the water desalination unit and everything. So like you couldn't imagine a project and a craft that's the better definition of being completely powered by nature, like in every capacity, like all the systems, all the hydration,
all
everything, which is pretty amazing.
Let's talk about some other part of nature, which is wind. Obviously, you're gonna need wind, and like I see here, obviously the wind, it changes all the time. Wind's in a very unusual direction for this place right here, and how are you dealing with the wind? Are you able to forecast it? Are you able to plan ahead? Or
Yeah, the
are
nice-
you just, I mean, are you just out there pissing in the wind in the middle of the ocean going,
or am I just winging it?
I can't believe you told that joke.
Yeah, well, that's I think you know what I think I use that as an example because people just think you just like decide to do it, just like you just wing it. But
Right.
the amount of planning and preparation
Right.
that goes into these kind of things is like exponential. There we go. We probably lost the battery. There we go. The GoPro's down. We've still got a little bit of battery on one camera, and we got a backup camera over there.
Backup camera.
So
we got podcast
You got it.
equipment.
Like this is how you got to do your projects. Have a backup of a backup of a backup.
Right.
And that's how you get across any ocean and you survive any storms. You can cross over that into all areas of life, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've just, I've been very fortunate that I grew up sailing all my life, so I use all my background.
Dad was a big sailor, huh?
Yeah, my dad he built the first ever catamaran in South Africa, and I was sailing with him from the age of sort of 3 years old, and then I ended up actually racing professionally for probably 5-6 years of my life all over the world. So I think that's probably what's helped me the most in the projects that I do now.
Yeah.
Because people think that, the last project was a stand-up paddleboard journey, or they think this project, it's a wing foiling journey. Well, it's actually not. It's just a giant sailing navigation journey, and the tool that I'm using is whatever I'm holding, or the tool that I'm using was the paddle in the last one. It's a wing in this one, but it's a great example of what it takes to be a waterman, and then that takes all your background and experience across all the different sports, but especially your understanding of the ocean, understanding of the elements, the waves, the wind, the currents, the systems that travel around the world. So the high pressure systems, what happens to the wind around that, what time of the year to go, so you can optimize and maximize the currents and the wind and the trade winds over your route, making sure you're tapping into the right time of the year, make sure
that you have wind, because if you don't have wind, then you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, so if, as a great example, like if I had to go directly from Half Moon Bay straight across the route, like point to point, I would run out of wind because I'd be going right through the high pressure system, which would basically mean I'd go through into doldrums.
Right, yeah.
So
you're going. I saw that on the map.
So
you're going south towards San Diego, right?
You do almost like a half moon, yeah, because you're following the high pressure system that spins in a clockwise direction. So you're following the curve of the winds and the trades that they start out very northerly, and then they start bending more east, and then they bend all the way east, and then they're almost going direct east by the time you get to Hawaii.
The wing itself, is it a bigger wing than you normally use for when I see you surfing on it? It's a bigger wing.
So that's a good question. So when we talk,
you're obviously I'm thinking about your arms are going to be 12 feet long by the time you get.
Yeah, so a lot of people get confused the wings and the foils, and the wings are the thing you hold, and then the foils are the things that come down the side. Yeah. And I'll have three main wings, which are different sizes, and then I've got like bulletproof versions of those as backups, which are way more heavy and harder and way more durable. So I'm very fortunate that Armstrong Foils are sponsoring me for this. So they're actually designing and have developed the foils that are getting mounted to the side of the craft. We've got the rails we've built into the side so we can make the foils movable. And the objective is that once we get the foils, which are getting flown in from New Zealand, they're the same guys that are actually helping with America's Cup foils. So these are like the most advanced foils and people that work with foils on the planet. So I've been using their foils for like the last 3 years, and they're incredible. And those get added on so we can move them around so they can adjust the amount of lift and the amount of everything else.
Right.
And then the wings that I have, I'll use 3 of their main wings, which are different sizes, from a 5.5, 4.5, 3.5.
Yeah.
And they're developing another 3 different wings for me, which are like a 2 meter, a 4 meter, and then I think a 6.5,
right.
which I can deflate them and then inflate them when I need them according to the wind speed, the wind direction, and then just by chance I'll take a paddle because I know that when you do a run or a wind, I might get bored, and apparently I know that I can paddle a bit because I've done that in the past.
Right. It sounds like the craft or boat, or what are you going to call it, is under construction. Yeah. Are you getting a chance to? Are you going to have a chance to test it out before you take off, or are you like, all right, here we go, I'm going to wing it? No,
we always build in time to be able to test everything quite extensively. I think the time frame, you want to always have like In an ideal world, you want to have like a month or so, but unfortunately with COVID and everything else, everything's taking longer than planned. So we've had to build in a buffer for that. But I've got to get the craft shipped out from the UK, and just the time to get it here is like almost a month. So that's the challenge in itself. And all the parts that we're ordering from all over Europe for this kind of craft have taken like 3 times longer. So we'll probably only have 3 weeks to be able to test it. And I'm looking for a weather window in the sort of last week to the first 2 weeks of June to be able to leave. And you got to find that's the only thing you can control is the weather window of when you leave, which is great. But the good thing is that my weather window isn't as specific as it was for doing the transatlantic, because I can go across the wind, which I wasn't really able to do when I was paddling, because I had such a tight window of angle that I could sail or paddle across the wind. So that makes it a lot easier for me this time around.
Are there any similarities to the paddleboarding, or is it completely different? Like just all you got is the same as the shell, otherwise the craft and the way you're traveling is completely different.
Yeah, it's like a different. It's a different sport. It's a different project. I can go hopefully across the wind, and I've got to build it. And there'll be a lot of stuff that I'll figure out like along the way. And I think a lot of people don't get that that's how these kind of projects work. Like there's an idea you have, and there's a concept that you play with and you test. But this is like nothing like this has ever been done before. So people are like, oh, well, how come you own photos? Well, it's because it's never been done before. So until we're testing it, we can't actually have any pictures. So I've actually had to take like pictures of me foiling and then pictures of me on my little craft and then superimpose it on, because that's what it'll look like. But it hasn't been done before.
I was trying to find pictures of the craft and like, no, that looks like
so
been
it's like
photoshopped.
Photoshopped because the concept is here. Yeah, and I think there's a famous saying that says, which like I'm very fortunate I got named as like one of the Genius 100, which is like people like innovators of the world, like the top 100 innovators of the world that come up with incredible ideas and use
that had sidebar. You being genius of the world had everything to do with what you do, but it had nothing to do with your technique.
No, definitely
your
to
phone.
Do with that. But what I think I take from that is that like innovation and creativity is more powerful than knowledge, because once you create an idea, everything that we see around us was created by imagination. And imagination is so powerful to be able to have an idea and then bring that into reality. And that shifts the paradigm for people and what's possible, and becomes the benchmark of everything going forward. And you've got to have people that continuously are pushing the boundaries of everything, and the human spirit and the human endurance and human innovation and creativity. And I love coming up with ideas that just all they do are they're a tool to be able to create awareness and bring awareness to major issues globally, and help ways to be able to give back and to have a really big impact on the world and other people around you.
Some stuff I read about, obviously, and what you sent to me was sustainability. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so obviously the craft is everything's powered by nature.
So we talk about that.
So it's all about giving back. So I'm an ambassador for the World Youth Climate Change Park. So we're planting more than 1,000 trees to be able to offset the carbon footprint, even though we do have, which is 0, but also just as an example to other businesses around the world to get to carbon net 0 by 2050. I mean, I'm a B Corp certified business, so our objective is actually to do it by 2030. I want to use this project to actually help my business get to carbon net 0 by 2022, and continue that going forward as a role model for positive change. And then obviously through Conservation International, I'm an ambassador for them, so the money we raise during the project will go back to their projects that they do incredible work all around the world, highlighting positive, looking after marine protected areas to protect the 30% of our oceans by 2030, which is a massive campaign. And then obviously Operation Smile to be able to raise money for kids that can't afford to have operations through cleft palates. And then the Two Oceans Aquarium, which will pay for outreaches in disadvantaged communities in Africa that go out and actually teach kids about ocean conservation, ocean education, ocean outreach, and then these ocean classrooms that we're hoping to implement that will hopefully reach 150 to 250,000 kids around the world, which is pretty amazing.
Wonderful. Great. Can people track you on your journey?
Yeah, so
like a long distance swimmer, you know, they can track.
Yep.
They can track you.
Yes. So on the website, on
Yeah.
the Chris Bertish Foundation.org and the chrisbertish.com site, there'll be a project page where you can track and donate.
So
And
people, that's my next question. Is people can
Yes.
people can still donate money to you.
Yeah, so the donations that happen during the journey is all going back to charity. Anybody that gets involved with the crowdfunding campaign now, that's just to fund the getting to the start line to actually pay for the project
And
to
what's
happen.
that information?
That's all on the Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign, which is Transpac Wing Project on the Indiegogo,
Okay.
and that only goes right up until the end of Wednesday. That crowdfunding campaign.
You
is
can also
finished.
get that information on the Alternate Radio Show Facebook page, Santa Cruz Base Facebook page, because I put it up there. The Indiegogo,
Yeah.
like you told me that was.
Yeah, so
I
that's-
put the wrong one. Remember?
You're like,
I did
don't
that-
do that. Don't
I did
do
that last time.
But it's just like, oh, that's an awesome video.
I did that last time you yelled at me. Yeah.
We're trying to raise money to actually like pay for the project to get done. Like I
Yeah.
gotta pay for the SATCOMs unit and pay to ship it over here. We don't have enough sponsors, and you know it's under COVID at the moment, so I understand.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a great example. Like we can all bitch and moan and complain and like, oh, we can't raise enough money. But like if you believe in something enough, you'll find a way.
Yeah.
And like, I don't have enough big corporate sponsors, but we're getting crowdfunding to be able to help us be able to do it. I'll put in my own money. Some friends of mine that believe in the stuff that I do, they always help me, which is great. And you know, people believe in the stuff we do because it actually, through the journeys that I've done in the past, people can see
You're trying to make the
what
world
we've
a better.
done. You know,
Making
we're
the
trying to
world,
make-
making the world a better place.
yeah, and try to use really difficult times to be able to also be an inspiration and to be a shining beacon of hope and inspiration to other people out there, that we can all show up at our best each and every day, no matter how bad it is, and be an example for positive change.
And the journey's going to take how long?
Whew.
How long do you think it's going to take?
Hopefully shorter than the last one. The last one was 93 days. This is slightly shorter, and we don't know how fast the craft is going to be during certain environments. I believe that I'll be able to get it up onto a plane, but we won't be planing all the time. So a lot of the times it'll be slow. When the conditions are right, I'll be able to plane. So somewhere between 50 to 60 days. Yeah, that's sort of the idea, but it's never been done before. And my objective isn't speed. Like,
Right.
I'm not trying to win a race.
Right.
Like, this
Just
is
trying
the
to get
own
there.
race. Like, no one's ever done this before. So the objective is to get there safely, efficiently, and be able to have the most amount of impact. And you know, if I was trying to get there as fast as possible, I'd be probably putting bigger foils on, and I wouldn't be doing any of the stuff that I'm doing as a give back perspective, which slows me
You're
down.
just trying to haul ass.
I'm just trying to.
That would be trying to haul ass.
Exactly.
Right.
And normally, you know, it's the classic case of the tortoise and the hare in the race. You know, you want to be the hare and win the sprint. That's great. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Be the tortoise. The tortoise is going to get there.
Yeah, well, in the end.
It'll take its home. It'll take its home on its back.
Yeah.
And it'll create a great story, and
Right.
it'll have
And
amazing
you'll
impact.
have another beard.
Yes, I'll have another amazing beard to be able to, and a whole lot of really amazing stories to tell. So.
My last question: winging it or wing foiling at night.
Yes.
Okay, so how are you going to be going through the night, or
Yeah,
are you
so
shutting it down at sunset?
Yeah, just shut it down and then anchor.
Yeah.
Pull up to the
Yeah.
closest dock.
Right, stop fishing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people forget that, you know, when you go to sleep at night, you know, the lights go out and you jump in your bed and everything stops moving. You wake up the next morning, whatever, 8-10 hours later. Well, it doesn't work like that in the ocean. The ocean never stops moving and never stops changing, and you've got to evolve and sort of move with it. You've got to be in flow, like as Bruce Lee would say, be like water, my friend, and flow with it. You know, and I work from like a sailing background. I work on a shift cycle, so I'm normally 4 hours on, 2 hours off, 4 hours on, 2 hours off. And in that time that I'm off, I've got to like try and get an hour's sleep, do my navigation, fix all the problems, make my nutrition, prepare my hydration for the next day, and then also try and get an hour's sleep. So I never really get more than sort of 2.5 hours sleep a day, but you get used to it. Your body gets used
I was
to
going
that
to
as
ask
a
you.
system. You know?
I mean, I need 9, 10. You know, I need my 8-9 hours sleep.
You do, and you
But
think you do, but
you're changing You're changing it, your system, so you can survive on 1-2 hours.
Yeah, you
get tired? Are you tired?
I've worked out that like your body shouts at you like doing anything new when you're really pushing yourself for the first sort of 5 to 10 days, and your body is an incredible mechanism and creature. It adapts to your new
Right.
new system that you want to put it through, and it'll send every type of like signal for you to stop, of like pain and stress on your mind and body and everything else. But once you get through and you push through that sort of 5 to 7 day ratio of pushing yourself constantly in this consistent way, your body realizes that it needs to adapt to its new environment and what it needs to upscale to, which is incredible when you do that, because then you realize what you're actually capable of. And most people don't push themselves past that really uncomfortable state because it's uncomfortable. But that's really where the magic happens and where your greatest potential lies.
And you're used to it. You've done that before.
Across pretty much everything that I do. Right? Yeah. And it's about testing that and finding your new limits and finding your new threshold and then seeing what you can do with it. And I always find that as a fascinating, using myself as a guinea pig for being able to maximizing your output and seeing what your body can do and achieve before it shuts down.
So you see people running and everyone's working out. Everyone's working out outside now. Everyone's running and skateboarding,
awesome.
and people listen to music. Are you listening to music out there? You got tunes?
Definitely.
You got some tunes out there?
I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of meditation.
So you
stuff,
have some music. You have some entertainment rather than just out there.
Yeah, and I think you also you look within a lot. There's a famous saying by Rami that says "Know thyself," and I think a lot of people these days are really, we are so entertained all the time, and we've got these little fancy devices in our pockets all the time where we constantly have stimuli, and people don't like to be alone and be by themselves. But I think that's when you learn the most about yourself, is when you can be quiet and you don't have distractions, and you learn the most about who you are as an individual, and you become comfortable with being alone within your own space. And that really, I think you learn the most about yourself through those kind of journeys and what becomes really important to you in life.
And you've been able to help people with that. People, since the first COVID lockdown, a lot of people were alone. I think you got online and started something that you were able to talk to people or help people that were alone, correct?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people have never really been alone and being sort of caught up in a small environment for long periods of time. And I think my last journey was a good example of that, being cooped up in a box-sized object for 93 days without being able to really speak to the outside world is pretty much a definition of lockdown, but like intensified 50-fold. So I'd learned some very valuable tools and tips and tricks to be able to stay positive and healthy and happy and effective and efficient through these really difficult times. And I'm very glad that I'm able to help people with that, and hopefully my next book and the next film and stuff coming out next year will help people with that as well.
He's winging it, folks. Thanks, buddy.
I appreciate it.
I mean, last time I talked to you, I remember I talked to you before you took off in Morocco. I don't know where you were. We did a WhatsApp, whatever those things are. And I said to myself, maybe the last time I talked to that guy, he's paddleboarding across the Atlantic. Oh my God! But no, he made it, and I feel good about this. I know you're gonna do. I know you're gonna do fantastic, and I'm very proud of you. And I'm proud to have you as my friend, and the things you do for the world and for people and your nation of South Africa.
Thanks, man.
Which is a mile. It's on the other side of the planet for us. But what you do for your country and how you're seen in your country is you're a true hero.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And,
not for the feats you've done, but for all the work you've done for the environment.
Yeah, but I think that's what it is. Like that's what I try and sort of instill in other people, is to we can all look at all the challenging times that we're dealing with at the moment, and the storms we're facing, and it seems overwhelming. But just don't focus on the overwhelming obstacles and challenges each and every day. Just focus on what's in front of you. And wake up every day and think of how can I show up at my best for myself, for other people around me, and for the community, and how can I use my experience and my tools, whatever you have. We've all got skills, and we all have ways we can give back and help other people. So work out what you can do to give back and help others. And people always look at what I do, and there'll always be the critics out there that'll always, and I get it, everything that I do. It's not really a trans-Pacific.
Really
you're not going across the whole ocean. And it's like, no, I'm not. But it doesn't really matter. There's the Transpac race that's been going for 50 years, which is called the Transpac race, which is a sailing race that goes from
Hawaii,
California to Hawaii. It's called the Transpac. No one picks fault at it. Don't be a critic.
Right.
Be better. Use this time to be able to help people. lift people up instead of picking fault at people for
You're always
things
gonna
that
have
are
that.
going to do. And they're always going to have
You're
that.
never
But
gonna-
that's okay.
Yeah.
You just got to learn to be able to let it go and know that what you're doing is for the right reasons, and you're hopefully making a positive impact on other people around you. And like you're doing with your shows that you do all over, you interview incredible people, do incredible things,
Lucky, I'm
and that's
blessed.
really awesome. And you're exposing incredible stories. So you're using what you do
Yeah.
to be able to inspire positive change, and that in itself is amazing. So keep up the good work.
Give me all the website information, please. ChrisBertish.com.
Yeah, so ChrisBertish.com, you can look up any of the information about me, what I do as a speaker or the project, and then the Chris Bertish Foundation, which is my non-profit, which is a 5013C, which is chrisbertishfoundation.org. And you can donate there to the project, which will then give that money back to charity. So any money that gets raised through the donations through the foundation
Right.
go back to charity, and then through the actual Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign that goes all the way until the end of Wednesday, which is the 17th of this month.
Indiegogo.
Indiegogo, just got Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign, and then once you're in there, just go Transpac Wing Project. So Transpac, one word, Wing Project, separate
Okay.
words. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you, my
And
friend.
you'll have to come join me on a palm tree on the other side to do the next.
I would love to do
in
that.
Hawaii.
I would love to do that. But I wish you the very, very best. I think people out there wish you the very, very best. And thanks for coming over today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and don't be afraid to go out and have an adventure.
Absolutely not.
And we are cut. Thanks very much, guys and girls.